Good afternoon. My name's Conklin McLeod of NBN's Tuesday News. Today, a Hunter man calls for the new Maitland Hospital for change after being left gobsmacked by the staff shortages and service delays. Knights coach Adam O'Brien is confident skipper Callum Ponga to be cleared to play against Canberra this weekend. And we have a look back at the finals of the Knights New South Wales Cup and the Tarsha Gale Cup sides. But first this afternoon, a Hunter man who had his surgery for a smashed elbow postponed every day for almost a week at the new Maitland Hospital is calling for change after being left gobsmacked by the staff shortages and service delays. Mark Howe, a former radiographer who now runs a safety consultancy business, was to have kneel by mouth ahead of surgery for a badly broken elbow that was bent back the wrong way. Mr. Howe said he was drip fed and on minimal water to prepare for the surgery each day, but 6 days passed before he would receive the operation as more urgent, high priority cases came in. He said he felt like he was in a third world country. Meanwhile, he said this, it was like I'd come off a mop and I was waiting a Makita drill to put some screws in my arms. And also, he said this, one day went past, I was prepped all day. I had the stockings on, ready to go, and it was cancelled. The next day, nothing to eat. Nil per mouth, then cancelled. Third day, it was 5 or 6 days. Then I got prepared and ready to go. And still nothing occurred. Mr. Howe said he is not sure the surgery would have happened when it did had he not reached out to state member for Maitland, Jenny Atchison, to intervene, but the procedural problems, wait times, and chronic staff shortages he witnessed during his treatment there needed to be addressed because it was atrocious. Meanwhile, he said this, you spent all this money on a brand new hospital and the staff mall was bottom of the barrel. Some of the staff were wonderful and others have been pushed and pulled so hard they were quite agitated. I'm not blaming them for that. I'm blaming the workload. There were nurses that had years of experiences telling me they were ready to walk out because they'd lost their passion and drive to look after people and they'd rather go and pack shelves at Woolies. Meanwhile, Mr. Howe's injury occurred after a slip, trip and fall in Singleton in March. He said he was taken to Singleton Hospital that morning by paramedics despite expressing a desire to go to a hospital more likely equipped to perform the required surgery. Conklin McLeod, NBN News. A man who was operating a drug bank out of a shed at Heather Bray and was arrested jumping through a window with nearly a kilogram of cocaine hidden in his pants, has been jailed for a maximum of 4 years. 33-year-old Brendan Hosking was a long-term drug addict who had been in and out of jail for years when he agreed to hold a brick of cocaine for major supply in 2020. But in September last year, after a domestic-related incident with his then-girlfriend at East Maitland, the police came looking for him and saw him flee through the window of a shed in Giggins Road, Heatherbrae. He was eventually tackled to the ground and police found a brick of cocaine in them, valued and between $220,000 and $218,000. Hosking, who at the time was on parole for drug supply charges, was taken back to jail where he spent the next 13 months before he was granted bail to go to a residential rehabilitation centre. Hosking pleaded guilty to supplying a quantity of a prohibited drug and gave evidence in Newcastle District Court on Friday. The judge jailed Hosking for a maximum of 4 years, with a non-parole period of 2 years. Up next, sport is, of course, coming along the way, as the Knights hope that Callum Ponga can be cleared to face the Raiders this weekend. Knights coach Adam O'Brien is confident skipper Callum Ponga will be cleared to play against Canberra this week, despite the sickening head knock he suffered in Sunday's 42-6 loss to Penrith. Ponga was left spread angled on the turf and needed to be helped from the field after a desperate attempt to prevent a try by Panthers back rower Velami Kikau in the 15th minute. He failed his head injury assessment but returned to watch the rest of the match from the interchange bench. It was the third time this season that he has needed an HIA. Although in games against Manly and Parramatta he was off the field for only 15 minutes, he has only a host of HIAs throughout his career, but is yet to miss a subsequent game throughout concussion. Still on the Knights, and of course Adam O'Brien is backing Jack Hetherington and Adam Elliott to add a touch of old school muscle and mongrel to his squad next season. Newcastle announced on Friday that they had signed Hetherington, the Canterbury Firebrand, and Canberra workhorse Elliott for the next 3 seasons. O'Brien said the pair exemplified the type of uncompromising qualities that made the likes of Danny Badiouis and Paul Harrigan club legends back in the Knights' glory days. O'Brien said this: both those guys compete, they're fit, tough competitors, number one. That's what we need to fill the joint. The DNA of the Knights back 20-odd years ago, the likes of Bedsy Badiouis and Chief Harrigan were tough, fit competitors. Then he said this: I think both of those guys represent that Jack's got good leg speed for a big guy. The modern game requires players to have that leg speed. Adam's in the same mood. I think both guys will compete in the game. They're tough. They'll speak at meetings. They're men. Meanwhile, Hetherington comes with a dubious judiciary record. Since debuting for Penrith in 2018, he has played in 43 NRL games and been charged 8 times with an array of illegalities, leading to a combined tally of 15 weeks on the sidelines for suspensions. Mayor O'Brien said that wasn't a deterrent, nor does it appear to have worried the Raiders, West Tigers, St George Illawarra and Dolphins, who are also chasing the 26-year-old with lucrative offers. O'Brien said that he is not scared of that. He thinks Jack understands, and also he's identified some tackle technique issues that he's worked really hard at fixing. Conklin McLeod, NBN News. Meanwhile, this weekend will be huge for both the Newcastle and Hunter Rugby League and Newcastle Rugby League as well, with their rounds to quickly kick off this weekend. It's a huge one for both the Newcastle and Hunter Rugby League and Newcastle Rugby League. And of course, round 9 of the Newcastle and Hunter Rugby League C-grade Monarch Blues Ladies League tag kicks off this Saturday. And it all starts with Morpeth taking on Awabakal, while Cardiff takes on Shortland. And also, in other games, Dudley is up against Raymond Terrace, while West Wallsend are up against Tea Gardens. Also, to the Newcastle Rugby League competition, and round 12 kicks off this Saturday, with the Macquarie Scorpions up against the Cessnock Goannas. Also, the Kurri Bulldogs take on the Western Suburbs Newcastle Rosellas, while Lakes United are up against Wyon. Also, the Maitland Pickers are of course on the Central Coast this Sunday, where they'll face the home side, the Entrance Tigers, and Central Newcastle will take on South Newcastle. And also the NBL 1 East also returns for both the women and the men's, with the women's Manly side taking on the Central Coast, while in the men, Canberra take on Norths. Also, Manly take on the Central Coast, while the Inner West take on the Illawarra. Also, Canberra take on Norths. Also, in the women's, Maitland take on the Newcastle Falcons. Also, the Hills Hornets are up against the Sutherland Sharks. But in the men's, Albury are up against Bankstown. Also in the men's, the Maitland Mustangs are up against the Newcastle Falcons. Also on Saturday, the Inner West are up against Illawarra. While in the one after that, in the men's, the Hills Hornets are up against Sutherland. And it all finishes off on Sunday in the men's with Canberra up against Bankstown. Meanwhile, in round 15 of the Hunters NPL competition, and of course Adamstown Rosebud take on Maitland this Saturday, while Cooks Hill are up against Broadmeadow. Also, Lambton are up against Charlestown, Edgeworth play against Western, and also Lake Macquarie are playing against Valentine, and Newcastle Olympic have the bye. But thankfully, there were no byes in the Women's Premier League. The Mid Coast take on Newcastle Olympic this Saturday, while Adamstown Rosebud are up against Maitland. New Lambton are playing against Broadmeadow, while Warners Bay are up against Charlestown Azuri. And also, the Newcastle and Hunter Rugby Union competition also returns, with round 8 starting this Saturday at 3 o'clock, with Maitland taking on the Southern Beaches, while Lake Macquarie are up against Mayweather Carlton, while the University of Newcastle have the bye. Also, the Wanderers are up against Nelson Bay, and the Hamilton Hawks are up against Singleton. Meanwhile, it will also occur for the NHRU women, with the Mayweather Carlton Madawi match starting on Friday at 6:30, and also the University of Newcastle have the bye, But also in other matches, the Wanderers host Maitland on Saturday, and also the Hamilton Hawks are up against the Waratahs. And finally tonight, round 10 of the AFL Hunter Central Coast kicks off with the men, and of course Newcastle City are up against Singleton, while Maitland are up against Warners Bay, and of course Cardiff are up against rivals Terrigal Avoca, and Killarney Vale have the bye. Also in the women's, Newcastle City take on Singleton, while Cardiff are up against Terrigal Avoca, right up at Cameron Park, and Killarney Vale play against Wyon in a battle of the Central Coast, while Warners Bay have the bye. And also to the NSWRL and in the New South Wales Cup, the Newtown Jets take on the Panthers, while Parramatta takes on North Sydney. Also, the Canberra Raiders are up against the Newcastle Knights, while Canterbury are up against the Western Suburbs Magpies, and also the Mounties are up against the St George Illawarra Dragons. Also, the Blackstown Sea Eagles are up against the South Sydney Rabbitohs. So, in the Harvey Norman New South Wales Women's Premiership, the Cronulla Sharks are up against North Sydney, while the Wentworthville Magpies take on the West Tigers. Meanwhile, the Mounties are up against the Rabbitohs, while it all wraps up on Monday night with the Central Coast Roosters playing at home against the Newcastle Knights. And of course, in the Jersey Flag Cup in round 15, the Canberra Raiders take on the Newcastle Knights, while the Canterbury Bulldogs take on the West Tigers. And of course, the Cronulla Sharks are up against the Penrith Panthers, the Parramatta Eels are up against the Sydney Roosters, while the Manly Warringah Sea Eagles take on the South Sydney Rabbitohs. And of course, the Victoria Thunderbolts take on the St George Illawarra Dragons. Conklin McLeod, NBN News. Now, of course, for the other finals of the Knights, let's have a look at their best of winning them into the New South Wales Cup, as well as in the Country Championships and the Tashkal ones. Week 1 of the New South Wales Cup finals began 6th versus 7th. It was Manly versus Newcastle, and those two were at it again when Newcastle scored the first try. And of course, Newcastle were just unstoppable right throughout the game. And of course, everyone was supporting the Knights. Not only just that, thankfully, everyone knew what to do. And of course, it was Newcastle's turn to run with the ball and score. With a score for the Knights still up in the good ones, and it was in for the good books as well. Because of it, it was just marvellous for the Knights. And of course, Manly was struggling. Thankfully, the Knights were not struggling for very long, as the Knights held onto the ball, scoring plenty of tries. And of course, in good fashion, the Knights had to quickly give their opponents a huge upset. But with more tries coming from the Knights, everything and everyone always comes along. Then, with the last seconds remaining on the clock, Newcastle kicked a field goal, resulting in the score at full time 45-6. Then, the other one. Of course, Lyon took on the Penrith Panthers. It was a battle of second versus third into the competition.
Puts the ball down in the northwestern corner.
It sure was. It was a battle of the Lyon Roos versus the Penrith Panthers.
And Smith will score. Behind the uprights. A saloon passage, a lovely ball, and he did the rest. The kick
the rest is how it stayed, though.
The ground and turn left and bounce back.
That's what the football can do sometimes when it bounces, and terrific work again from Slamenko to be there in a position as we see.
Lyon were unstoppable right throughout the game.
Stepping inside there, Rodney Coates, Stapleton's away. We know he's got speed. He's in the clear, Nathan Stapleton will go.
And he certainly was.
Wyon, a wonderful try.
With Lyon scoring one of the best tries of all.
Well done, Wyon. Nathan Stapleton. Sensational. Here's Mitch Williams.
Lyon led 12-6.
Got the ball away to
right up at the break.
They continue.
But then they extended their lead
Smith getting across the line.
to score plenty more tries.
Smith's second try of the day. 56 and a quarter minutes.
16-6.
16-6. Now it's Saunders to the line. David the Scar.
Penrith were trying to do everything they could, but it was not to be.
Great work, tremendous kick.
As Lyon was stealing their hearts.
Straight up the centre. Andy Saunders, he's
16-10. And of course,
this afternoon as we now see Willie
it was just huge for Lyon.
He's got support too. It's play on.
And of course, it was too late for the Panthers to make a comeback.
Went through several sets of hands. Referee points to the spot. On tackle 5.
Lyon had the good chances of having the best ones of all. Lyon scored, with the Central Coast side securing one of the best wins in history, 28-10. With Lyon having the week off, it was time for Newcastle to take on Penrith in the second week of the New South Wales Cup finals. And of course, the Knights scored the first try. Even though Penrith tried to have a fight back, but not good enough though. Thankfully, the Knights had their Rise for Alex shirts on, which was good, and of course, the Knights ran with the ball and scored plenty of tries. As the crowd scored for the Knights, they scored a try.
15 up, 2, hold. 14, Marcus off, Marcus 2D.
Both Newcastle running up the ball, they were unstoppable right throughout the second week of the finals.
Go on.
And of course, Penrith were trying everything they could, but also it just wasn't enough. Thankfully, with the Knights' win becoming enough to go through to the preliminary final.
Hold.
of course, the Knights had the ball right in their hands, scoring a try.
Hold. Go.
That's what they had to have. The Knights ran, kicked the ball and then passed it, and scored.
Held. Last.
As the Knights quickly scored and secured one of the best finals wins in history.
Penrith. Line.
Because of it, a try awarded. Also, the Knights will now have another shot of having a fairy tale grand final.
One, mate. Backwards off Newcastle.
But of course, as Penrith tried to steal the show, thankfully, there wasn't enough time. Newcastle defeated them 44-12.
Started at the Dragons in 06, South Sydney in 08, and played in 09-10 NRL at Newcastle.
With the Knights facing the Mounties for the very first time, it was up in the first preliminary final of the New South Wales Cup.
In the New South Wales Cup. First try to Newcastle.
And of course, Newcastle led 6-0.
Quick hands from the hurler has been intercepted.
Newcastle ran with the ball again.
He's chased by Josh McCrone. Over the 30, over the 20. They won't catch Tuha. And Newcastle go 2 in a row.
And because of that,
And Nettie Tuha with 16 tries for the season now. He's put on his back 5 metres.
the Knights led 10-0
Buttress.
right up at the
This is
break.
Cornish. Beautiful ball from
But not for long when the Mounties scored.
running off his half, straight it into a hole and through.
Then Newcastle scored back
Mounties comfortably.
just in order to go through to the grand final.
Just that was dragged by the Turban Feeney, who gets his second, and Newcastle have their third. 2 plays left, they're 26 metres out. They flood the
The
chutes.
Knights won 18-4. The Knights won 18-4 when the Mounties scored later.
No, try this time. Second time lucky, Stuart Mills.
Mills knew a lot, and of course now it was 18-8. And of course the Mounties were not giving up.
Down from behind. Again up as he left. Cornish with another beautiful ball to Hawkins. He went to
By the time it was dropped,
it's still there.
thankfully the Knights had to run the ball just in order to go through to the grand final.
Then Jalen Feeney, chased by McCrone, away from McCrone, and Feeney gets his third.
It was a try that of course started in the second half.
As it comes to McCrone,
The Mounties threatened to make a comeback,
afterwards, Hawkins was there and scoring for Mounties.
with Hodkins scoring.
Measured his kick and gave centre Jeremy Hawkins every opportunity, just the start Mounties needed in the second half. The 34-year-old.
And of course Newcastle knew what to do.
They want it out wide. Tuha is calling for the ball, and it's a good cover tackle from McCrone, but reaching out to claim
And of course McCrow scored one of the best Knights tries of all.
another try. Pulled down 12 metres.
The Knights led 26-12.
Mounties set up behind him. McCrone to Blanco Lee.
The Mounties were threatening to have a comeback and a fight back,
21
threatening to go to come back to back finals.
Lee. Still plenty of tackles up their sleeve. McCrone.
The Mounties were threatening though,
Across the defensive line.
and they certainly were.
Kicking for Cornish. The Hawks create another try. Oh, Mounties are coming hard now. Can Newcastle Newcastle hold on. Trying to free up Jacko.
And the Knights certainly did just that.
McCrone. A long floating pass.
The Knights held on very long, just to make sure that they're the first team through to the grand final of the New South Wales Cup.
Newcastle celebrate as they kick clear again. Is that enough to take the Knights into the grand final? 3 metres out. They need to score here, Mounties, as time ticks away. Cornish thinks about going long and does.
Great news for the Knights. The first team through to the grand final, of course, was the Knights.
To a 4-point ball game, they'll shoot from out wide to make the difference.
As the full-time buzzer sounded.
Down with the clock. 15 seconds left. Ahead by 4 Newcastle.
And of course, the full-time score, Newcastle 30, Mounties 26.
They've beaten Manly, they've beaten Penrith, and they've beaten the minor premiers. Newcastle go to the New South Wales Cup Grand Final. Team 7 beats Team 1. The Newcastle flag waves. Josh McCrone, a frustrated captain. It's Newcastle 30 beating Mounties 26.
After enjoying the week off, which of course was about a week ago, the Wallaroos need to do something, and they had to beat Canterbury. And that of course was the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs, to make sure that Wyon was the second team through to the grand final, just to join the Newcastle Knights, who of course became the first team to go through to the final after beating the Mounties 30-26. The Bulldogs were trying to do everything they could. Wyon scored after that. Wyon led 10-4 up at half time. Canterbury threatened to have a comeback, but it was all too late, as Wyon secured a huge win, with Wyon becoming the second team through to the grand final. And of course, Wyon ran with the ball and scored a try. A comeback was quickly made on for Wyon, and it was a huge success. Wyon became the second team to go through to the grand final of the New South Wales Cup.
And 17 gone in the second, and all of a sudden, Wyon 32 to Canterbury Bulldogs 10. Brock Mullen has tackled right on that try line, and 4 players in the Bulldogs in to get home. Williams out of dummy half, and it's going to be a knock-out, a possible try. Yes,
it was a try to go.
Mitch Williams, that was all too easy. Corey Thompson knocking on the chip into the end goal.
Of course, it was full time.
To go here. Wyon 36 to Canterbury Bulldogs 10. Only a metre away from the try line now. Last tackle. Ray Clark moves into dummy half. Can't Jolene Brown pull something off. Ray Clark to dummy half.
By the time the Bulldogs tried to have this on, but it was too late.
Dummy half on the last tackle. Good thinking. 13 minutes to go here. Wyon lose 38. Canterbury Bulldogs 14. Brock Mullen standing in a dummy half.
Thankfully, Wyon were doing absolutely good. And of course,
but once he gets tackled himself, so he almost confused himself. Here goes a nice shot. It's going to be Willie Miller.
Wyon scored yet again.
Old-fashioned rugby league forward style. And that most definitely wraps it up now. 8 minutes to go here in the New South Wales Cup preliminary final. Wyong lose 42, Canterbury Bulldogs 16. Can the Bulldogs get the last say here? It's all over. Wyong are through to the grand final already, and it's going to be a try, yes it is.
But it wasn't to be, as Wyong became the second team through to the New South Wales Cup grand final. Wyong defeating the Bulldogs 44-20. Then the big one arrived. The grand final between the Newcastle Knights and the Wyong Roos.
Who's going to take the 2015 VB New South Wales Cup as the kickoff is allowed to bounce for Mamo? Sam Mataora with the first run for the game.
It was Newcastle versus Wyong in the New South Wales Cup final.
Cornish goes flat and hard, reaching out, claiming the try, celebrating the try, Nathan Smith.
Rules. Sean. Tackle 5. We have a try. Just confirm grounding for us, please.
Many Knights fans knew that he had dropped the ball.
He just needs to get it over the line. Mamo comes in, it's definite try. Great work from Smith. Just got him one-on-one, close to the try line. He cops a bit of a knee there from Mamo, which is why he's still on the ground and being treated now, but it's ball's definitely on the line for mine. Definite 4-pointer. Oh!
But Wyong scored.
Through forward, Verna Kessie with an offload back to John O'Ford. This tall 5'8", bumping away and positioning himself to offload through McKillerick. This is Slimankle, who kicks for men and marked on the outside.
Even though Wyong tried to have another try.
Here it is. Straight on, hand on the ball.
But it was denied.
That's a knock on.
It was knocked on.
He's got no control.
Thankfully, Knights fans were excited as the video referee awarded the Wyong Roos a no try.
No try, that was easy. The upper body burst through, but
Finally, the Newcastle Knights had something to do. They had to score a lot of tries.
Newcastle work it well, and it works for Hanetti Tuha.
With the Knights scoring, it was just marvellous for Newcastle.
And the easiest of tries for Tuha.
Newcastle scored first and then led right in the game 6-4.
Good defence from Pulu and McKillerick. Sirinen to Tuamavave, flat, it's Fitzgibbon. Getting the ball away for Feeney, outside to Holland.
Then
Runs away from
Holland scored Newcastle's second try.
That's the work from Fitzgibbon. Watch him get through the line. Look for the support of Feeney, the fastest man on the field. Scored 3 last week. Sets up Holland here for a try this afternoon. Try scoring machine as Holland. He set up the last try with his footwork and his pass. This time they finish it off. Beautiful work from Fitzgibbon to throw the pass to Feeney. The last 5 minutes, the Newcastle Knights are on a roll, full of momentum, throwing the pass from side to side across the field, testing their arm, and they've hit the front and hit the front fast.
And of course, Newcastle led 10-4. Too strong for their rivals.
Will he need it? There's your answer. No, the defence slipped off. Tuha could go again. Newcastle have a third try.
Calls. Sean.
Thankfully,
Review. Tackle 5.
the refs had to give Newcastle
We have a try.
a try.
Just clear that he breaks free of the defenders and is entitled to promote the ball. Thank you.
Elliott definitely drops off. He goes over the top of Tuha. Williams gets over the top of him as well. No one's on him. He scores the try. There's no doubt about it. It's a 4-pointer. It's a 4-pointer. And it's great work from Tuha.
Thankfully, the video referee gave the Knights a
He
try.
shows great strength to stay in the field of play and get the football over the line. Great effort. And we've seen the 2 semi-finals over the weekend. Ben Hunt come with a pass on Friday night to score the try left-hand corner for the Broncos, which gave them that try just before half-time, as we see the decision now as a try. Now, that gave them that try on Friday night, which gave momentum going.
Knights fans all but excited.
Says, let's go for another 40 minutes.
And it certainly was. The Knights led 14-4.
finish level.
right up at half-time.
It's Newcastle resuming with a 10-point advantage. Madeira. There's Tyler Cornish in his right, a bit severe front.
Then the Knights ran and scored.
Holland for Tuha again. But it was the footwork from Nadir out of dummy half that sets up the space down that left-hand side. But it's the finishers, the creators and the finishers on the left-hand edge of Holland and Tuha. They've been outstanding all year. And once again today, 4 tries coming down that edge. 3 from Tuha, 1 from Holland. And it just continues to happen week in and week out for these boys.
Newcastle led 20-4.
Williams loses the ball backwards, still the last. John Ford has
Wyong were on the verge of a comeback.
This is Molan. He sits it up. Throw Marshall.
Even though it wasn't enough though, but thankfully,
Nathan Smith. Where there's life, there's hope for the Wyong Roos.
there was good news for the Knights though. They managed to win the grand final of the New South Wales Cup.
Wasn't pretty, but it doesn't
20 points to 10.
Good work from Ford, throws a pass. Watch that from Slimenkle, sums up the situation. Tuha goes past the football and Smith gets his second of the evening. As I mentioned, not the best execution, not the prettiest of tries, but it brings Wyong back into the match, gives them confidence, gives them momentum.
The Newtown Jets won the New South Wales Cup from 7th in 2012. Newcastle Knights are about to do the same. They fell into the finals, winning 4 of their final 10 regular season games. And now they've won 4 in a row through the finals.
And of course the siren went off in the final few minutes of the second half,
And the Roos hope to leave a small imprint
with the
later.
Newcastle Knights now victorious.
The support troops as well, and the trash talk is starting because Newcastle are the 2015 VB New South Wales Cup premiers. 4 tries to 2, 20 points to 10. What a finish to the season for Newcastle. What a horrible way for Wyong to round out an outstanding year for them. There's plenty of pride and passion in the Knights right now. They've come from nowhere to take the cup.
Quite see who it was, the number 10 in Harry Whitfield.
2018 was the year of the Newcastle Knights Lower Gaelic Cup side, and of course they went through to the semi-finals, and because of that they had to defeat the Manara Colts in the elimination preliminary semi-final.
Although here comes Stewart and Parsons, but the combination of those two wasn't enough, and it's Tiva Matora from Central Charleston.
And of course Newcastle were on the good edge, and of course the Knights were of course the good favourites to win.
I think but the tackle count mounting again for Illawarra, and this time the halfback Lockwood was hit but not hurt, and there was no damage done, and the pass gotten away brilliantly out there. I'm not sure who it was. I think it was the winger on the far side, wasn't it?
And of course the Knights scored plenty of tries.
Mataroa.
Monaro holding for now.
With Manara scoreless, Newcastle scored
You said he was
plenty
very
more.
good in that first half. And there's the reward, a try from dummy half adjacent to the left-hand upright. So here they come.
Thankfully, the Knights
Fourth
left their
tackle,
rivals
spreading the ball, a
scoreless
nice dummy,
throughout most of the
run,
game.
step. And I think you'll find it's the 11, Sione Tuitupo from Western Suburbs. Back like we are doing is Bauer Scott. He's
And
ended
of
up on the
course,
deck. And there's the number
Knights
9.
were
He
running and
exposes that.
unstoppable
And here
right
goes
throughout
Sam
the game.
Abraham. He's been fantastic all day. Good chase there from Chase Stewart of the Monaro Colts. But it is hard work. Abraham, who was really good in that first half, full of big forwards, don't they? So right-hand side, they turn another
And of
one on
course,
the
it was
inside.
just
No obstruction
sensational
there.
for the Knights.
Couldn't quite see who got the ball down. He's gone into the hooking role. Him and Potts swapping around. Here's the dummy and run
More
by the number
tries
7.
scored
And
for
it's going to
Newcastle.
be... well, he gives it away. And, well, Donnie's got a double. I've lost my words. He's probably
nevertheless,
just as physical.
But just as physical, and, it takes a lot of courage to get there. Look at this, great try. And the man that we gave lots of raps to for his all-round game, Willie Lockwood, has just been split and beaten by Zane Bajorjak.
Trying to get over for
as
that
Newcastle became the first team through to the Laurie Daly Cup
I believe that's
Grand
Mia Fuller,
Final.
the 14, in adjacent to the right upright.
And it is Newcastle through to the final. Who they'll play, we'll find out in a minute. Riverina Bulls or the Greater... Great guys that
After the Newcastle Knights had defeated the Monaro Colts to go through to the grand final, it was the battle against the Riverina Bulls and the Greater Northern Tigers. Riverina scored first before Greater Northern fought back.
And that evens things right back up here as he scores that one.
The Bulls won 6-4
Aldous is over again.
before Greater Northern managed to quickly score and have a 12-6 lead.
To the right side. They'll go out to the number 6.
But it wasn't
That's
long though.
Seabolt, and they try and attack again through the second row, but they got it over. Great try
Before
there.
the Bulls
Might
managed
have
to
been number
convert it
3
though.
there. Will actually open the box pass out.
12
Now he's
all.
sent it out, now goes to the big number.
Greater
8,
Northern
Alec
secured a
Hall,
fight back.
and he's got it down. Referee Bailey Hibbert had a good long look at it.
As you said, playing
18-12. The Bulls won a good comeback,
Who ended up giving it off there. Baravalala now Radu, who's reached over.
with
and got it
Riverina on the
down.
comeback cards.
That's a great reaching try there from Radu, the interchange hooker. And now we'll see
Greater Northern came very
Now the
close.
Tigers going back left edge and get
They scored a
themselves over the line
try.
to number 5
Johnson, I
there.
think, is it 2?
Unless they will get a play before
24-18,
Now they're going
and
to
of
Vincent.
course,
Vincent again, he's going to go over.
and of course Riverina knew exactly what to do. 26-24, and of course Greater Northern tried to do exactly what to do. A fight back and tried to go through to the grand final.
I think it is that scored that try.
Now, I'll play it back now. Altus takes a run out of them. How far Baravalala? Here he goes. Max over.
Greater Northern's time was running out by the time that they had scored.
Altus is over again and make it 32-26. And that's the commentator's curse in effect, really.
Greater Northern won 32, Riverina won 26, and by the time that the Riverina Bulls had scored,
Again, Ziggy Vincent for the Riverina Bulls.
1 or 2 off the ruck. He's so
and of course Riverina had to go through to... Riverina became the second team through to the grand final.
The Deagle got it down. He just got to the line, and now the Riverina Bulls have hit the front. What an absolute
38-32.
Rubber kicks, but the kick
After both sides eliminated the rest of the competition, it was the Riverina Bulls up against the Newcastle Knights in the Laurie Daly Cup Grand Final for 2018. And because of that, it was Newcastle's turn to score a try first.
Church from the corner. And Church.
And of course, the Knights led 6-0.
Fourth tackle now for Newcastle. Back to Lockwood.
And of course, the Knights led 4-0.
Sending it wider.
Right at the very break before scoring,
Straight through the middle. He's got
before the
support
Knights
too.
scored their
And he's
second
down to the
try.
10-metre line. What a run. The Knights here coming again.
And of course,
switching it
Newcastle
through the middle
had to
of the field.
quickly
They've had
run
success
the
out
ball
here. Where's a Church?
really
There
quickly.
he goes. Patrick down the touchline. He's got support. Back to
As
Peterson.
Newcastle scored
Try
their
to
second
Newcastle.
try.
That's their second of the match. And that's 8 points to nil. The Knights under the
10-0.
pump here.
Riverina produced a fight back.
Arndt. Held up, is he? Can he get the ball down? Referee says held up.
Riverina was thought to have
Again.
scored a try, but
Identifies the
it
need to
was
go
held
from
up.
dummy half. Did he get there? Referee said you've lost the football
But
over the
however,
line.
they lost the football.
Way this time down to
Thankfully,
Lockwood.
the Newcastle
Great ball
Knights
there.
held on to the
Comes
ball
Main, and
just
Main
in
crashes
time to
over.
score their third
Another
try.
try to Newcastle. That's their third try. Fine. Back there now to Main. He's straight through the
Try
middle.
number
He's
4
inside
came
the
to the
40.
Newcastle
He's got
Knights.
support. The
And of course, it was just marvellous for Newcastle. But then they lost the ball after that.
McLaughlin.
Then,
he goes short. Vincent offloads the football. McLaughlin.
Then Riverina suddenly fought back.
Try to Riverina. Wiscombe coming short.
Then they scored their second
That's
try.
the try that they needed, leading into half-time. Boarding as we see Newcastle leading
Newcastle
by 14 to 12.
leading 14 to
kicks on,
10.
and Riverina will try and continue on the way they finished the first half.
Because of that,
two
both
converted
teams
tries
quickly
just before the break.
had to do something.
Donny.
And of course, the Knights
Back to Lockwood.
knew what to
There
do.
goes the kick. There's the chase.
Scored the
There's
match-winning
catch, and
goal.
there's the try.
The Knights scored the
Unbelievable.
match-winning try.
Matura. He comes down with it. It's the football. Away now to the Knights as number 7 in Lockwood. There's a chance
Knights
out
now
wide.
had a good
Smith
chance.
goes himself, offloads the pass. Byman King. Byman King crashes
The Knights
over
scored
in
the
the
match
corner.
winner.
Toughening up in defence.
Even though the Bulls scored a
McLaughlin
try, but it
turning
was not
away.
enough.
Sigwell does a 360. Jinx. He's got space to the right-hand
Thankfully,
side.
the
Newley.
2018 Lower Daly Cups is Newcastle's, and of course, it was the Knights' year.
It's full time in the
Of the,
inaugural Laurie Daly
It was
Cup
the
Rugby League
Newcastle
Grand
Knights
Final.
Lower Daly Cup
And
side that
Newcastle
secured a
have come out
victorious
winners in the end
premiership
over the
fairy
Bulls.
tale win.
Final score
22-16.
22-16.
Last year, the Newcastle Knights had to go to Wagga as part of the NSWRL, the Women's Country Championships Grand Final. It was to defeat the Riverina Bulls. The Knights led 6-0 right up in the first half. And of course, things went interesting. As the Knights led 13-0. Then 19-0. And of course, the Knights were at it again. And were now leading 25-0 right into the second half. Thankfully, the Knights scored another try. 31-0. And it was Newcastle's turn to quickly have a good go. As the Newcastle Maitland Region Knights had to stop Riverina from winning, as Newcastle defeated them 38-0. It was marvellous for the Newcastle Maitland Region Knights, who were too strong for their rivals.
Player of the match coming from the Newcastle side, number 12.
And of course, this year's Women's Country Championship semi-finals saw the Central Coast Roosters defeat their rivals. And they were the first team to go through to the grand final. And of course, the Central Coast were just too good for their rivals. It was just massive for the Central Coast. Too good and too strong. Also, the Newcastle Knights women's side also got through to the grand final, becoming the second team to do so. After defeating the West Tigers with a huge victory. And of course, the Knights scored more tries. It was a painful hoodoo that Newcastle had to break. And of course, Newcastle knew exactly what to do. They were the second team through to the grand final. And of course, the Knights scored plenty more. In the first week of this year's Tasha Gold Cup finals, it was the Newcastle Knights who took on the St George Dragons.
Mercedes Metcalf, she hit it at speed.
And of course, it was Newcastle's turn to quickly upset their rivals.
The afternoon for the Knights. We'll see it got to.
It was Newcastle versus St George.
As indeed. Tyler Emiatu. He put the bit between the teeth. 5 out, worked hard. Boys.
The Knights led 6-4, even though the Dragons had a comeback. But thankfully, the Knights were just too good for their rivals right throughout the game.
2-3, and ends up in the hands of Angel Mikakera. They want a quick play the ball, they get it. He's went long.
The Knights had to secure a fight back, just to make sure that their finals hopes had to be alive and strong.
Lovely long pass and hit the winger on the chest. Clancy.
The Knights now led 10-8 and needed more tries than one.
Brazier steps off the right and goes bang. The Knights score. Southwark is a lovely ball for Kirkpatrick. Kirkpatrick at speed. She steps past
the Knights were of course unstoppable, and also they scored more tries than any other team.
Well, straight off the back of points, it was a lovely pass from Southwell, and she found the rim.
With Hannah Southwell scoring one of the best tries of her career. The second half saw Newcastle lead 22-8. But it wasn't for long before St George quickly scored a try.
Yaranamua, she found her and Tyler Emiati. Emiatu gets a double. They come back to the left. They throw the dummy now. Yaranamuna.
St George threatened to quickly knock the Knights out, but not for long.
It's the Dragons back within a sniff. It's 22-18. Kick to come. 4 minutes left.
Here again. Goes out the back for Beckett. It's an intercept pass.
The second preliminary semi-final was huge, and it was a battle for a place in the grand final between Newcastle and Parramatta in the Natasha Gale Cup semi-finals. Newcastle scored first. Because of it, Parramatta scored back. Newcastle led 6-0.
It's a nice kick. Still alive. I think that's a try. And they go to that left edge now. Dangerous times if they let
the Eels threatened to come back.
They certainly did. You could see it from a mile off. Will she give a short pass to Atora? No. She gives it to Kennard. It's a face ball. Clancy goes herself.
But thankfully, the Knights managed to score back and score back-to-back tries in the second half.
Now Green, Waters shining in the back line. Nice move for Middleton.
And of course, Newcastle will take on the Sydney Roosters in the grand final.
It started from the middle, and then Middleton, she gives a double and had plenty of work to do.
The Knights won
You wouldn't believe it. You fair dinkum would not
18
believe it.
points to 14. Meanwhile, to women's local AFL, and Newcastle has beaten the Central Coast with a huge 13-8 win. It was fantastic for Newcastle, who were just too strong for their rivals right throughout the game.
And not the worst result there for the Central Coast, as the ball in comes right in the hot zone.
And of course, players from Newcastle were from Lake Macquarie, and of course, there were cities from Cardiff, Warners Bay, but also from Newcastle, as well as Hamilton, Belmont, and Maitland. While cities from the Central Coast were, of course, Gosford, Killarney Vale, as well as Bateau Bay, The Entrance, and Terrigal Avoca.
And she's about 40 metres out from goal. I'm not sure if this is going to be beyond her with the breeze against her. She's going to have a crack. Long ball in. A lot of people there. Oh, it's Halverson. And you wouldn't want to have it in anyone else's hands. 10 or 15 out from goal. And Sarah Halverson puts the second goal on the board for Newcastle. Joyce in pursuit. Joyce on hands and knees needs to get rid of it and does. Simpson with Duffy Sykes over the ball, and it's going to be a ball up. That was tough.
What an absolutely awesome contest by both teams. And I've got to highlight D'Amico's work. That quick, clean hand pass out there created the opportunity for Central Coast now. Looking at goal here, Ives has slotted it straight through. What a wonderful response by the Central Coast. This is as good as you'll get, ladies and gentlemen. High ball, no mark taken. Oh, great pick up there, and gutsy stuff. We are seeing some fantastic football here. Ash Fogg, a toe poke off the ground. Oh,
because of that,
that brings that to within the 6-point ball game.
Newcastle won 13-8.
And this is
The AFL Hunter Central Coast returns this weekend.
Absolutely. 40 seconds to go. She's put it into the hot spot. 10, 15 metres out. Need a mark for Central Coast. Need a rover. D'Amico touched off the boot. No. It's going to go out of bounds. Great work, D'Amico. Good kick.
To the weather now, and it was okay for Newcastle for yesterday, and also it'll be okay as well as for the entire Hunter and the Central Coast. After the break, a Hunter man faces the possibility of life in jail over the murder of his girlfriend in Newcastle. Emerald Wardle was a young woman with a bright future, hopes and dreams, a loving family, and a loyal group of friends. But on June 2020, her promising life was tragically cut short when her boyfriend, Jordan Miller, strangled her to death. And a warning to our viewers, the story is extremely confronting. There was no history of domestic violence, and Miller, a university student working part-time, had no criminal record. Instead, Miller was in a psychotic state and had lost touch with reality, causing him to believe Miss Wardle, the woman he was in a loving relationship with, was a demon who was sucking the life out of him. Her death was a tragic and senseless case of domestic violence that shocked everyone who knew the pair. There was no dispute during Miller's murder trial over the past few weeks that it was Miller who had killed Miss Wardle. He confessed first to police and then during his first appearance in court repeatedly saying this, "I am a murderer." And the medical experts called to give evidence, agreeing he was in a psychotic state at the time of the killing. The crucial issue for the jury to determine was what caused him to be in that psychotic state and made him believe he had no choice but to kill the young woman he had absolutely loved. Miller had pleaded not guilty to murder and raised in defense of mental health impairment, his defense claiming he was suffering from a first episode of psychosis in the form of an underlying chronic schizophrenia. The prosecution, led by Crown Prosecutor Lee Carr, SC, said the psychosis Miller was suffering at the time was caused solely by using LSD and cannabis. Mr. Carr pointed the finger to the reports of Professor David Greenberg, who opinioned Miller's psychotic episode was temporarily related to his use of drugs, and it was too early to definitely diagnose him with schizophrenia. And after deliberating for about 12 hours, the jury agreed with the prosecution, filing back into court about 2:40 p.m. on Tuesday and finding Miller guilty of murder. Miller hung his head and closed his eyes when the verdict was read. He remained behind bars and will face a sentence hearing in August. Conlon McLeod, NBN News. The Toronto Awaba Junior Football Club committee had to spend hours repairing damage to their home grounds following a lot of vandalism on the grounds. Because of it, vandals tore up thin and oval on motorbikes that of course have left hours of work in their wake. For the football club's small committee of 6. Members first noticed their home grounds had been damaged just before the start of the June long weekend, and club security Zandalia Foster said it's extremely frustrating and also that they have had enough. And a warning that the story contains coarse language. One Nation Chief of Staff James Ashby says former Hunter Senator Brian Burston was a coward and had become a text pest, fixated on making his and Pauline Hanson's life miserable, a court was told. Under cross-examination in the federal court on Tuesday, Mr. Ashby said he received countless messages from Mr. Burston after the senator left One Nation for the United Australia Party. Mr. Burston's barrister, Bruce McClintock, asked Mr. Ashby if it was appropriate to call his client a traitorous in a response, but however, others deemed that it was not acceptable. Also, another staffer, Wendy Leach, also approached Mr. Ashby, saying Mr. Burton had been offered her good because she wasn't feeling well. Also, Mr. Ashby was waiting for Miss Hanson to leave a dinner so the pair could prepare for the story. He said he wanted to film Miss Hanson in the Parliament's mobile hall. When Mr. Burston entered the frame, Mr. Burston told him to off and grab the mobile phone, he said. Conklin McLeod, NBN News. And of course, the trial will continue. Socceroos goalkeeping hero Andrew Redmayne became a national hero for his Wiggles-style goalkeeping antics, but he'll always be remembered for his long beard. Redmayne's crazy-eyed antics helped the national team overcome Peru in a penalty shootout and qualify for the World Cup on Tuesday, sending waves of joy and shock throughout the country. Darryl Dark, his first goalkeeping coach, may well be the influence behind Redmayne's beard. The goalkeeper's usual style earned him the nickname of the Grey Wiggle. Mr. Dark has a long beard just like his proteague. Mr. Dark quipped that he started it when he was 14, that he said to him when he grew up that he's going to look like you. That also he had the shaved head and big beard like Ned Kelly. Redmayne played for Central Coast youth representative sides, then known as the Lakers and Coasties. Also, asked if Redmayne had a comic side back then, like he showed with his Wiggles moves, a wild facial expression after the Socceroos victory, Mr. Dark said he was always quite earnest. Actually, when he came to train, he came to train. Raymond had a stint at the Central Coast Mariners in 2007-08, but now plays for Sydney FC. Mr. Dark, who coached Redmayne from the ages of 10 to 14, said he was an intelligent and articulate kid. And of course, Redmayne played his junior football with Gosford City Dragons Football Club. Steve Gibbs was his teammate. Mr. Gibbs quipped that he didn't see any evidence of the Grey Wiggle back then. The season that he really remembered was the under-8s. They were in the 8-2s. They weren't even in the 8-1s. He played a lot of centre-back. He just read the game well. He was Player of the Year. Redmayne was passionate about the game. Also, funny story, we lost 7-0 to Budgie one week, and he put on the waterworks, and also his mum gave him a huge hug, and he said, "Mum, you got us to the World Cup. If you hadn't been so supportive, he might have given up the game." After Redmayne's heroics, Mr. Gibbs said his first instinct was, "Wow, I used to play with that guy. It's so good to see him go on to bigger and better things. It's important to tell all our youngsters that this guy played for us." Redmayne played for Gosford for 5 years from the under-6s. And of course, Redmayne's well-known Wiggles' antics also attracted the attention of the Wiggles themselves. And because of that, they were all proud. Right onto social media this morning. Conley McLeod, NBN News. Next in sport, the Knights drop Lachlan Fitzgibbon ahead of their clash with the Raiders. To the NRL, the Newcastle Knights have dropped back row Lachlan Fitzgibbon as part of their clash with the Canberra Raiders, and the only major change in the side that lost to Penrith on Sunday. Fitzgibbon, at this stage, is the only player to have paid a price in the 42-6 loss, left out of the side entirely on Tuesday for the trip to the nation's capital. Because of that, the Knights are all but hoping to go into the tops. Are all but hoping to go into the top 8 and also into the finals for the for Newcastle's must win. Kurt Mann is back in his starting team at lock after returning from injury against Penrith via the bench. Young prop Pasimi Salor comes in as a reserve. Meanwhile, captain Callum Ponga has been named at fullback, but will need to pass tests following a head knock on Sunday. Outside back Heimel Hunt and halfback Adam Clune have been included in an extended match squad, indicating their availability following injury spells. Hunt played in the New South Wales Cup side's 38-12 loss to Newtown on Sunday. The 28-year-old is yet to play NRL this year due to a pre-season knee injury and then a fractured cheekbone in April. Clune has not played since Newcastle's 36-12 loss to Brisbane in round 11 after battling a knee problem. Meanwhile, Jake Clifford has played halfback in the side's past 2 games, alongside mid-seals and recruit Anthony Milford. 28-year-old Fitzgibbon played 80 minutes against the Panthers, making 108 metres from about 16 runs, including 2 tackle breaks. He made 39 tackles but missed 4. Before being dropped, the wholehearted back rower claimed the club's season was still well and truly alive, calling on the playing group to take ownership this week and turn things around. Conley McLeod, NBN News. Meanwhile, the Newcastle North Stars take on the Canberra Brave this weekend in the Australian Ice Hockey League at the Hunter Ice Skating Stadium at Warners Bay. The North Stars are hoping that their undefeated winning streak continues and are hoping to knock the Canberra Brave off in the top spot. As we heard earlier, Newcastle have taken out the AFL Hunter Central Coast Women's District Carnival with a 4-point win over their rivals, the Central Coast. Meanwhile, the Central Coast beat both Newcastle and Hunter during the 3-team carnival at Tugger on Monday, but Newcastle 2.113 edged the Coast 1.28 in the final. Meanwhile, a regional representative side is usually selected from the carnival to face South Coast, but the game is yet to be selected. It could be held at the end of the season. The men's carnival was not held this year. And as we also heard, the Socceroos are also celebrating after a huge 5-4 win over Peru. And because of that, the Socceroos have returned home. And also, because of that, the Socceroos have all but secured a spot in the FIFA World Cup. Soccer, and of course, Edgeworth will likely welcome back 2020 Grand Final player of the match, Dylan Holt, into their starting side when they host fellow finals hopefuls Western on Sunday. Returning from a knee injury, Holt came off the bench in Saturday's 3-0 loss to the Lambton Jaffers, in which Liam Wilson was given a straight red card for a lunging tackle. It was the former Bears' second red of the year, meaning he faces at least a 2-game ban. Eagles coach Peter McGuinness said Holt will likely take Wilson's spot against Western, who have 11 points, 2 behind Edgeworth, who had 13 points. With a game in hand, Edgeworth are 5th, 4 points off the Jaffers, 17, who took the only premiership hopes outside of Missouri, 25th. Magic and Maitland, 23. McGuinness says making the top 5 finals was now his side's focus. Meanwhile, Sasha Montiflor, who suffered an ankle injury, missed the Jaffers game, but will be back this week. And of course, onto the ladder, and of course, Charlestown are in first, while Broadmeadow are in second. Maitland are in third, while Lambton Jaffers are in fourth. Edgeworth 5th, Olympic 6th. Western are in 7th, while Valentine are in 8th. Cooks Hill are in 9th, and of course Lake Macquarie are in 10th, and Adamstown are in 11th. Conklin McLeod, NBN News. To racing, and Philly One Penny scored her 4th win in 9 career starts to give trainer Scott Singleton a race-to-race double on his home track at Scone on Tuesday. One Penny won the 1,000 metre handicap under apprentice Dylan Gibbons after Reach Beyond fought back late to win the benchmark 58 handicap, 1,700 metres, in a photo for Singleton. Meanwhile, Newcastle apprentice Bailey Wheeler won on Reach Beyond and fans, while Aaron Bullock finished with victories aboard Oakfield, Duke and Volume. Service your local weather is coming up after the break.
There are sports, and there are extreme sports. Just like there are compact four-wheel drives, and there's the Nissan X-Trail. An extreme all-mode four-wheel drive system, an extreme interior, and extreme power. The X-Trail. Only Nissan takes the compact four-wheel drive to the extreme.
To the weather, and it was right across Newcastle and the Hunter today, and of course it was really clear, and of course the winds were northwesterly up to 15 to 25 kilometers an hour, becoming light in tonight. And of course, there was 9 to 20 up in Newcastle. And of course, there was 8 to 20 for both Toronto and Wallsend. Now to the Hunter, and it was also the same. Today, winds to northwesterly, 15 to 25 kilometers an hour, becoming light in the evening. And of course, the surf conditions this afternoon and tonight may be more powerful than they appear and expected to be hazardous for coastal activities such as rock fishing and swimming. Now to the forecast for 7 days, and of course, it'll be right. For Newcastle, 9 to 20. Meanwhile, there is 8 to 19 for Maitland, 6 to 19 for Singleton, 8 to 20 for Gosford, and 4 to 18 for Scone. And of course, that is it for the latest news from NBN for this Tuesday and Wednesday. And also from all of us here, good night.